are that movement that's gonna shake this country up. And if you don't know, you gotta ask somebody. If you don't know, you gotta ask somebody. Look at your neighbor and tell them real good. We are that movement. Gonna turn this nation around. We're gonna vote like we should. We're gonna vote everywhere.
Good to be on tonight with everybody. I'm looking forward to the breaking conversation. Folk need to understand, if you want to be movement grown and movement built and movement bound and movement inspired and movement pushed, you need to be here with us every time the repairs brief comes on. You need to have a brief. When we say brief, we mean clear, concise, not dumbed down, but constructed in a way that it's like a pocket manual, right? This podcast is like a pocket manual, and you get all phases of it. You get the facts, as Dr. Bloom said. You get a vision, because just telling people what's wrong is not movement building. And then you get a clear community to connect with, and you do it with a moral framing. So this brief is letting go of this puny language of left and right, Democrat, Republican, and conservative and liberal. I heard somebody trying to describe this moment using that language the other day on the news. It just found it was so tiring. It was so boring. It didn't meet the moment. So this brief is almost like, come here and get that. I call it midweek service, like in the church. You know, the Bible study is not like the worship service. It's more of a brief, but it keeps you fighting for the rest of the week. Yeah.
Young folks in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, many of the early leaders had studied Gandhi with Jim Lawson. And one of the things they learned about Gandhi's movement is that Gandhi always had a newspaper. And Gandhi's paper was always to keep the movement informed about what they needed to know to know what was going on and to know what they could do about it. So like you're saying, it is a brief on what's happening, but a brief that's particularly targeted at encouraging people to action. And I think that's what we're going for here.
Yeah. Well, you know, everybody, from what Frederick Douglass said, when people wanted to buy his freedom, he said, no, give me some money to invest in a newspaper and I'll get my freedom, right? Hannah comes out of a tradition, Amy Zion Church, and churches have always had, Black churches particularly, have always had some form or way of communication. We have that. And so we're taking a newspaper concept and putting it in a podcast, if you will. Right.
Yeah, and every generation got to use the technology of that era. You've told me before about the fax you used to get on the fax machine.
Oh yeah, well, Jesse. Oh God, every week you hit, you hear that, and then what would happen is this fax would come across one page, right, and it would have, this is what the basic headlines of the day. Here are the facts. Here's what we need to do. So you felt like you were empowered, because, you know, we've always said the last thing we want people to do in movement is be loud and wrong and uninformed, right? But we don't always need that in some big manual, right? And we need to take pieces of things apart and empower. Just like on Capitol Hill, you know, every day they get a briefing. Now, I don't always agree with it because they kind of want everybody to sound alike. But at least they get one. They get a briefing. Here are the issues today. Here's what our positions are on them. Boom, boom, boom. Well, the movement needs a briefing too. We need a moral briefing for a fusion movement.
So everybody who comes to the repairs brief here on Mondays will get a briefing. You're going to get some facts. And this week, our facts are going to be about the cost of the war right now. But to go back to the briefings that are coming out on Capitol Hill these days, there's a lot of a language in those briefings about how messaging needs to be about affordability as we go into this midterm election. We're challenging that a bit and saying it's about more than affordability. Y'all want to say why affordability is not enough as a moral framework?
Jump in it, Hannah. Jump. I see you itching. Go ahead. We're gonna have some fun too.
When we talk about affordability, I think that describes a symptom, you know, but our public policies and our public priorities, that explains the disease. And so we need to stop telling working people to budget their way out of policy decisions they did not make. And so using that word hides so many bad policies that we are living under right now.
Yeah, it's so problematic of a word for me. I mean, I understand what people are trying to say, but if there's 140 million poor and low-wage people in the country, why don't you say the issue is just poverty and low wages? Why do you have to change the language? Affordability, so are you saying if we just cut the price of things that people will be better? Well, if they're not making a living wage, how's that going to help? I think part of the way we come up with all this consultant-based language that doesn't really get at what the issue. Now, if you're saying people can't afford because they're poor and low wage, and therefore we need to raise wages and raise this, and that's what our policy position is, maybe that's a different way. But just to say people have a problem with affordability, well, that's been a problem since the founding of the country. I mean, there's always been the haves and the have-nots. What we see today is an exacerbated situation where people want to give more favors to billionaires and more burdens to the rest of us. And we think affordability is not strong enough language. Let's talk about poverty, low wages, and what to do about it. And tell us, politicians, tell us what you're going to do about it. If it is an affordability issue, what are you going to do about it?
Well, and part of what we got to be clear about is that at least the majority of people who are in the Congress right now have shown us what they intend to do about it. They have granted an ever-increasing budget for war while cutting nutrition assistance and healthcare. That's what we're seeing in our communities.
Mm-hmm. And they're showing, Hannah and Jonathan, that isn't it interesting? This is the thing that and movements have to start saying this. We have to push people to say it. We can always find money from war. And we can always find an almost unanimous vote for a war budget by both sides of the aisle, right? But the question we need to be raising is, what does this immoral, illegal war of choice, Trump's war, Netanyahu's war, what is it really costing? I mean, we know what it's costing in terms of human lives and just being wrong. But in this question, we can't unseparate the attempt to deal with affordability, the attempt to deal with poverty and low wages from what we are actually seeing in the actual cost with this war. And the strangeness, the wrongness of always being today, what Jonathan had come on the news. Pentagon sends a letter to order more weapons. They didn't say they had an affordability problem. Give us some more weapons. Give us some more bombs. Who's going to pay for it, But when it comes to poor and low-wage people, it's never said, let's order up some higher wages. Let's order up so that people can deal with the issue. That's why we have to have these briefs to really focus the issues.
Dr. Broom, let's talk about the facts. I mean, we know how much is being spent on this war. We know what's already been spent. We also know what that same amount of money could pay for in terms of the things that we are told we don't have enough for here at home. What are some of the figures that we have in front of us in this week's brief?
In this week's brief, so we have $103 billion. That's what the Institute of Policy Studies fact sheet is citing for us. So that's the first 4 months of this war through June 27th. So instead of spending that $103 billion, which is $2.9 billion in military aid, we could be.
But let's go back to that. Let's go back, since this is a briefing. Let's go back to that. I want you to slow down on that, because that's people read it fast in the news. First, 4 months?
Yeah.
I want get that. 103 billion. Just divide that 4 into 103. That's 20 plus $5 billion a month. Y'all just listen to this podcast. Let that sink in. And not a question, not a person saying we can't afford that. I mean, well, maybe there's some, but I mean, the majority of the population are saying, okay. And it's a war that has never been voted on by the Congress. We believe it's illegal and immoral. So, in some ways, it's criminal. And that's your money, right, Hammond? That's your money. Now, we might curse sometime on this podcast. Let me go ahead and tell y'all that, even though all three of us are preachers, because some of this stuff is cursable. But go ahead. So 103 billion in 4 months.
In 4 months of this war. And then what can we be using that money for? So the Medicaid, healthcare for more than 12 million people, we could use that money for.
And Medicaid, we're talking about who? We're talking about poor people. We're talking about women. We're talking about children. I think on one of these briefs, we need to do a listing of Medicaid. Who actually gets Medicaid? So it's not a benign kind of, this is Medicaid. Because there's not a family in this country that's not impacted. And we just passed that other crazy budget, bill, the deadly, ugly bill, and it took people off of, right? Affordable care, Medicaid. But what we just learned, say that again. How many people?
12 million people. 12 million people that could cover for 1 year, for Medicaid, what they're spending in 1 day.
In 4 months.
Now, the three of us spent a lot of time with a lot of other people in D.C. last summer, and I remember listening to those people in Congress say why they were cutting all those people off, because we were bringing folks who were going to tell them exactly what it would mean if they lost their Medicaid. And what they said over and over and over again was that to balance the budget, they had to make these cuts. They said that they called it waste. They said that was wasted money and that we couldn't afford the waste. Now here they've spent per month, 2-3 times what they're cutting per month out of that, and for things that people actually needed.
Yeah, and Jonathan, they didn't lie. Morality. Yeah, they didn't lie. They told a lie inside of a lie. In other words, they had, in order to balance the budget for that reconciliation bill, they had to cut so that they could have enough money for war. That's what we got to unpack here. They kind of say, you say, do these people lie? Yeah, they lie, but it's a lie within a lie. So the reconciliation budget has a limit that you can pass with 51 votes, right? Yes. So they looked at that and said, well, if we want all of this for war, we have to cut, because we can only pass so much with just 51 votes. And they did that. Yeah.
We should remember that the violence that they wanted to pay for at that point was all in the ICE budget.
That's it.
What we're seeing happening on our streets when these folks are getting rounded up, when they're being locked in these concentration camps, when we get reports that people are dying on the inside, like we've just heard 2 people at Delaney Hall this week, it's because they have more money that they took from healthcare and nutrition assistance. All this money that they found for the war wasn't even in that budget.
That's right. Wasn't even there. Yeah. Keep on. I might say damn in a minute, but keep on.
For that same amount, for the money that they're taking, that means Head Start childcare for almost 6 million new children. 6 million new children can have Head Start. And they said they didn't have money for Head Start. But here it is. We know that money can be used for Head Start. The next thing is SNAP, food assistance for people. To more than 45 million people that could supply food assistance to, that they're saying that they had to cut.
So this is what President means when he says we are in the middle of a war and we don't have money. Well, you don't have money if you're waging an illegal, immoral, unnecessary war of choice. But the fact is we have the money. We're just using it to blow up and destroy rather than to build up and to feed. And this is not some far leftist or extreme position. This is just facts. 45 million people, children, people could have been eating, 6 million students, children in Head Start,
Yeah.
with just what has been spent in 4 months. I want to keep driving that home. In 4 months. Take us on through heaven.
And so just like you were saying, Bishop, that the question is not whether America has resources. The question is what and whom we have decided those resources are being used for.
Yeah.
And so we got this 45 million people for SNAP and food assistance, 6 million for children, and then we have 12 million for Medicaid and healthcare, just from this budget, with, like you're saying, within the 4 months. And so the cost of those things, here is what the war is affecting us. Medicaid, healthcare, Head Start, preschool, and SNAP benefits for people. So you're not raising living wages, but yet you're still now cutting necessary needs for our Americans.
Let's talk about food. Can we talk about food for just a minute real quick? Because you know, we all are preachers in a tradition that says we have to have a special concern for people who are hungry, for people who don't have enough to eat. Every religious tradition I know says that. And frankly, a lot of people who aren't very religious will acknowledge that, you know, just because they get hungry themselves, they'll acknowledge that people need food. So these days, I hear a lot of people talking about the increase in the cost of food, whether they go to the grocery store and buy it and cook their own food, or whether they try to, you know, eat out at these places where some prices have nearly doubled. But that's because of the cost of groceries. So we're in a situation where the assistance that people who have very little receive for food has gone down because of these lies that we talk about, while at the same time, the lies that have been told to justify this illegal and immoral war have caused the grocery prices to go up. In the fact sheet, you'll see that that's mainly for 2 reasons. One, because the price of oil has gone up, and that means that it costs more to get everything to people. But the other reason is that they closed the Strait of Hormuz right when the fertilizer for the season was supposed to be going through. So farmers couldn't get enough fertilizer, and that's driven up the cost of everything that we have to grow. So this is a situation where what you were saying, Bishop, lie within a lie, this kind of lie on top of a lie. I mean, it's compounding the problem from both ends.
Yeah. You create the war undermines supply, the war causes oil prices to rise, trucks and those things that deliver cost more, prices go up. That's the affordability. The affordability is not that people just can't afford. The affordability is we're making things higher and higher and higher by bad decisions around war, illegal, immoral war. And then the grossest part of it is you do that, and then you also cut the very things that people need to live: food and health. Food and health. And then you cut or deny or undermine that other thing that people need to live, which is education. We all believe that education is fundamental to having a wholesome life. So you engage in an immoral, illegal war, and you take all of this money that could, in fact, be used for people to eat, people to have health care, people to have an educated mind. That is just backwards, foolish. And that's why those who want to use the language of affordability, we're saying you got to unpack that. You can't just say there's an affordability problem. You have to name what's causing it, right? And then name the answers to it. So you not only have to have living wages and living wages and healthcare, you have to end illegal war, right? If you're serious about dealing with the issue of the affordability that poor and low wage people in this country face.
Yes, indeed. And on this brief, we've said we want to get to the answers, not just what policies could make a difference, but what we can do to bring them about. And we always say that the best way to get to the answers is to listen to the people who are most directly impacted. So I want to bring in our sister, Elena from West Virginia, who's joining us. Good to see you, Elena.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be seen. Thank you for having me here.
Well, I know we've been talking for months, and you've been on this issue of how cuts to healthcare are impacting people in your home state of West Virginia. Can you just give us first of all, a report from the ground on what we've been talking about in terms of these cuts and the costs of the war on folks in your neighborhood?
Sure, absolutely. I just want to start out with a few little numbers, which come from the West Virginia Center of Policy and Budget. So, 490,294 residents in West Virginia um, rely on Medicaid um, to help with their health care. And SNAP provides 273,552 families with SNAP assistance.
And Elena, can I ask you a quick question? That's all,
Sure.
and that's just black folk. That's not talking about white, and that's just black folk, right?
No, sir. No, sir. Let's dispel that stereotype and that myth that these numbers are people that are lazy, that are drug addicted. Uh, in West Virginia, we have 668,000, probably some more now, poor and low wage workers. So these people are actually working families. Some families are two-parent income households, and they just don't meet enough to meet their basic daily needs, which is like food and then health care. Since the passing of the big, bad, deadly, ugly bill, because there's nothing beautiful about it, in July of 2025, across the nation, 800,000 children have lost their benefits, their SNAP benefits. And this is in 13 states that have available data for that. So, folks, you can do the research. But, you know, we're talking,
Now
we all
say
know
again, real quick, say again, how many people have lost their benefits?
800,000 children have lost benefits in 13 states that have available data
And let me
to
just come back
back
to some
this up.
numbers Anna was giving us. How many people could have gotten those benefits from the money that was just spent needlessly in
45,
Iran?
45 million.
45 million.
Yes.
Million. That's right.
We're talking
Well,
50 times the number it's been taken away from.
that's right.
Exactly.
My Lord.
And you know, Jonathan, hey, Lena, real quick, part of what a repair has to make people is not mad, but angry, the kind of anger we talk about in the Bible, where you become aware and you become angry because it doesn't have to be this way. And then that anger drives you into action. You know, I'm angry at inhumane things. I'm not a mad dog. I'm not going to go out here and be violent, but I'm going to be focused and push because we want this brief to bother folks. I want to push it one more thing. Like, listen, they're talking about they need some more weapons. One Tomahawk missile that destroyed a girls' school on the first day of the war killed more than 150 people, 120 school children. But listen, one Tomahawk missile, one, could provide 300 people with Medicaid and 150 children with Head Start and over 1,000 people with food. Just one. Just one. Just one missile. And they're talking about ordering up more for a war that's just going on and on and on that should have never been. Go ahead, Elaine.
So I live in Beckley, West Virginia, the county of Raleigh. I work at a nonprofit organization. We run solely on donations. We are poor. We are open Monday through Friday. We serve the most vulnerable. What I do there is I work as a navigator. So I see people on a daily. I navigate to help them connect to resources such as housing. We deal with the most vulnerable population. We deal with the unsheltered, those that have mental health issues, those that have substance use disorder, and some folks that are just plain folks every day who have are seeking employment, cannot find employment due to barriers such as lack of transportation, lack of child care. We live in a rural area. There's just not enough jobs here. Minimum wage here is $8.75 an hour. folks with kids or just folks single themselves just cannot afford it. One of the sad things is since the implementation of this big, bad, deadly, ugly bill, they have set work requirements for people to eat. So what that means is I have folks coming in, and if I get teary-eyed, it's just because I got off of work not too little long ago, and I have people coming in daily. I had a gentleman come in today, begging me, Miss Elena, do you all have any volunteer work that I can do? And I've had more than just him. I've had over 20 people in a month. Asked, do we have any volunteer work they can do to meet the work requirements that have been set forth of 20 hours per week just to eat? Folks have to work 20 hours a week or volunteer to fit the criteria to be eligible for SNAP benefits. So what I'm finding is I'm having people come in every day who have gone to renew their SNAP benefits and cannot because they don't meet the 20-hour a week work requirement. And also the age.
And Elena, can I say one point?
Sure.
And these folks justify that sometimes saying, well, the scriptures say you don't work, you don't eat. First of all, that was talking about people that were sitting around looking up in the sky for heaven and weren't participating in community, because Jesus said, when I was hungry, did you feed me? But more importantly, you're going to say it's criminal for somebody not to work 20 hours a week and and lazy and whatnot, give them food. But then you're going to support an illegal, immoral war that may not, that takes, what's this number? I'm going 45 million people's possibility for food. Or you're going to, as Jonathan said, block up this strait and block up the resources to fertilizer. Or you're going to engage in a war that's going to raise fuel costs. And I was just looking at this number, $53 billion more than it would be without this war. Over $900 per household. And in a poor family, $900 or $1,000, it might not seem like much to us, $100 a month, but that $100 a month could be the difference between food and some meals and not eating. I mean, it is literally immoral, I believe, criminal to say on the one hand, you got to work 20 hours just to get a biscuit, just to get some food. But then over here, I'm willing to turn away from it or allow an illegal, immoral war that blocks 45 million people from having some help. It's a damnable, ugly reality. That's why we can't just say affordability. We got to unpack what's really going on here. And before we get to the end, we'll talk about what we can do about it. But go ahead, Elaine.
So we are in a moral crisis here. We're in a moral crisis across the United States. We are one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We shouldn't even be going through this. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. And then my question is, so if these people work and get paid a wage, are they going to the amount that they would receive in SNAP benefits by just volunteering work, because they would be receiving $8.75 an hour at 20 hours a week? Is that going to decrease what they receive? And so it's a catch-22. And it's really sad because like the age limit for work requirements were raised from 54 to 64. Okay, and it also removed exceptions.
Say that again.
Okay, so the law extended the upper age limit for work requirements from 54 to 64. It also removed exceptions for being homeless, a veteran, or a former foster care youth under the age of 25. And so we've lost 14,000. There's 14,000 folks that have lost SNAP benefits in West Virginia. It's been decreased. The SNAP, I'm sorry. So yeah, it's been decreased.
Well, you've made the point very clear, and I just want to emphasize a piece of it. What you're saying, and this is exactly why we've been saying this can't just be framed as an affordability crisis. Because what you're saying, you got to get inside the logic of the people that wrote this law. They sat there and said that if people earn enough money to get to this threshold that they've set of a poverty level, then if they earn that much, they can't get any more benefits. But that means that they've set a level that is way below what it takes for somebody to live.
That's
So
right.
they're saying you got to work hard to get to a place where you still don't have enough.
Right.
But we say you got enough. And so on paper, you're okay, which is the problem with the poverty level to start with, the way it's normally done. It hadn't been correct since the 60s. That, yeah.
That's a cruel kind of hit.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
cruel. Our food banks are suffering. Even our food banks are begging for their pantries. Their shelves are empty because people are having to rely more on food banks now because of the SNAP and Medicaid cuts. So our food pantries are suffering because of this. We got our food pantries out here asking for I mean, of course they need donations, but I mean they're begging for them. So we are in a moral crisis here. People know this. Some people know. Some people don't want to know. But there is a solution. And that's
Right.
what I'm trying to get into is the solution. What we gonna do about it? You
Well,
know,
this is what I love about you is you know, you're a faithful woman. You're gonna love people around you. That's kind and charitable thing. But you're also the kind of person who looks at those folks and says, hey, if we get organized, we've got the
That's
power to do something. So
we do
tell us
have the
what you're
power.
doing what are you doing with folks up there in West Virginia to get organized here?
So one of the things that I do that I love about my work is we help people get IDs, help people to get their identifications. I'm so thankful to the Lord above to say that just in 1 month alone, it may not sound like a lot to some, but I know that we have helped over 10 folks get their IDs. So once they get their IDs, then we're registering them to vote. And the cool thing about that is that they use our mailing address at the center. And what that is I believe their place to vote is right there in town, which is where most of them kind of, hang out. So that's one of the things that we're doing. We're getting folks IDs, getting them registered to vote. We were just at a local food pantry in Fayette County just last week where we were having people check their registration, making sure it's active, making sure that, in case they needed to do any address changes, to update it. And what we're doing is educating. We need to be educated. We need to educate folks, educating, organizing, and mobilizing. So we're working on getting the mass vote out to get people to turn this thing around.
So you're going to be you're going to be getting these folk to lead some of these 1,000 marches to the polls first day of early voting and beyond, because one of the things, Tana, and I want you to say something about this. What I see in all of these pains when I look at this number is if you turn that pain into power, the people that have been hurt far outdistance any margin of victory of candidates at the state level, at the legislative level, at the congressional level, which then makes me know why there's so much interest in voter suppression. Because if you're going to do this kind of damage to people, two things you don't want. You don't want them to know that you're doing it. You want them to think it's just a simple affordability problem and not a maze of evil intentions, bad intentions that are creating this problem. And then you don't want them to wake up and realize the power they have. So your goal is let's do enough suppression so that if they come to sense of power, they will be held back. But here's what folk need to do. Of all the suppression they're trying to do, if we move in massive numbers, we can override a lot of the gerrymandering. We can override the margins. What we cannot afford to do is be a country anymore where a Congress that passed this big, ugly, deadly bill gets elected by only 7,000 total votes, and 90 million of us stay home. We just cannot do that anymore. What do you think, Hannah, about our power?
I totally agree, Bishop. I totally agree. I think you called it one time of getting angry at what is happening, holy indignation. That we are it's a holy anger when you're angry at what is happening. And so, yeah, we need to organize. Just like Elena said, organizing together, mobilizing. I think you called it micro-organizing, where you're gathering people together and being able to change these things. That's 100 days that we're really focusing on in the midst of this. And then the 1,000 marches, everybody can be a part of this. Just like Elena, organizing people, educating people, and then leading them to a change. And that's to the polls.
The Repairers of the Breach has announced just last week this campaign to organize 1,000 marches to the polls in communities across the country. And one thing that this Repairers Brief is to do is to steadily, in the months ahead, to inform people who are leading those. So we encourage you to go to breachrepairers.org, sign up to lead a march. You can get a toolkit, but part of what that toolkit is based on, Dr. Broom, is a march that you and Bishop and others helped to lead down in Eastern North Carolina in the primary season. And I wanted to ask y'all what you learned from that about what marching to the polls in a place that has been ignored and overlooked does both to the people who march and to the communities that see folks marching to the polls.
I'm going to let Bishop do the percentages, but it galvanized people. It brought them together to say, yes, we can be a part of changing our circumstance. We can be a part of changing those who are making these bad policies that are hurting and harming their grandmother, trying to make sure she has food on the table, to that single mother working 2 jobs just to have enough before the next week. So it showed them that coming together, standing together, regardless of where you are from, that you can galvanize in your communities and make a change.
Well, one of the things go ahead.
I was just going to say real quickly, I remember when y'all started, y'all were down in Wilson. I was in Texas watching it on the YouTube, and there were a couple hundred people there. But by the time I got back here and the crowd made it to Raleigh, there were thousands of people there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's part of what happened. And all the thing is we went for several weeks from November to then going around that area, informing people, letting them know, number one, what was going on, how they would be disenfranchised, why they didn't have to take it, the power that they had, and what they could do. And we chose to do it at the inopportune time in February. Some people said, wait, no, don't wait. The urgency is now. And I remember talking to my wife, Reverend Della, and we had asked some congregations. Some said, well, you don't have to find everybody if you can find somebody, right? And so that one church got a few others, then others came in with Hannah, and then they walked all the way. And we didn't give up when 200 people showed up that first morning. It was misty, it was all of that. As we walked, people started coming out of the classroom, bringing children. Some people cursing us, some people cheering. It didn't matter. They were noticing. Didn't matter. It was getting on the news. Didn't matter. And it grew and grew to thousands. We then found out that we also strategically did it during early voting. I want to go back. It wasn't just a march. That's why we're saying we don't have to march on Washington right now. We need to march to the polls strategically. It was early voting. We started on a Tuesday. Early voting was on a Wednesday. So we were marching on early voting. We took over the airwaves. People were seeing it. And we then found out later that we signed up hundreds of people who want to now continue to do things, right? But also the voting totals went up plus 40%, way over the percentage that they're basing the gerrymandering on, which is 41%. Now, we don't claim for all of that, but it's in the mix, right? I remember, to give you this thing, Jonathan, we were going through Weldon. And this one guy comes out, he's in his car, and he's blowing, and he's saying, why are these people marching? This is America. They ought to get the hell out of the way. And we all started laughing at him, because that's what he literally said. This is America. They ought to get out of the way. The problem is, he was right. His America would say no. Our America said yes. 2 doors down from him, another guy came out in tears saying thank you. And that's what happens when you begin to mobilize and move. You inspire, you force some people to just own their craziness, because you need to know that too. But then you might find 2 doors down an ally you never thought you would have. You know, we went in communities that people said, you're not going to march through that community. Yes, that community. And it was diverse, and it had a purpose, and it had an agenda, and it had a thing. We're going to love forward together. You know, we didn't know when we started that Willie Nelson would send a song that would be put. We didn't know. A lot of stuff you don't know when you start, but if you start, things will come. And what we do know now is we need conspicuous mass voting now. Not just folk going to the polls individually. We need mass marches to the poll. Why are you here? Because they're cutting now, and 45 million people could have eaten. Why are you here? Because millions of people being taken for Medicaid, and I'm one of them. And politicians, let me say this from the repairs brief. This is not partisan, this is true. You must tell people what you're going to do about the affordability, the poverty, and the lower. You can't just say, I'm fighting because of affordability. What are you going to do? And not 2 years after you get elected, not 1 year after you get elected, but what kind of bill will you put on, omnibus bill? What will happen in the first 50 days if you get the majority? That's what people must hear now. People are coming with a vision of a better America, a vision that we believe you don't have to choose bombs over people's health and people's food. But the people need to hear that if you get elected, you're getting elected to go to work first day with executive orders and policies and bills that are going to fundamentally shift people's lives. That's what people have to hear now.
I think there's something powerful about this call to walk. You know, through the winter, we saw the Buddhist monks walking from Texas all the way up to DC. I was actually, I mentioned I was in Texas when the walk in Eastern North Carolina started, and the Buddhist monks were just coming back. And I learned on my way back here that when they got to DC at the National Cathedral, they had been asked, they had a forum, and somebody asked, if you're praying for peace, what is the political action? What is the public action that we take to work for peace? And those monks actually deferred to an elder in their community, another monk who came up and gave the answer that the peace that we seek inside, we have to work for in the world. And by the time I got back to North Carolina, that Buddhist monk,
That's right.
Brother Bodie, was there with us marching. And we've seen, you know, people taking up walks ever since. There are people walking right now to Memphis through Tennessee. So this thing of walking is, I think it's important because it's something that each and every one of us can do.
Yeah,
you know, in our own way. You walk with your feet, you can roll with your wheels, however you do it. But we can get out and, like Bishop was saying, we can be conspicuous. We can be conspicuous in a moment when everyone knows that there are efforts to suppress votes. We can say, no, we're going publicly and we're going together to make it clear that we can vote and that can make a difference.
Yeah, bring your federal agent to the polling post, and we're gonna walk 10,000 people right past.
That's right.
You're not gonna intimidate us individually. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. And by the way, that monk said he's invited us to come to the monastery and teach them some things, and we're learning from each other. Walk, you know, and don't faint. And that's the moment. And then you want to do something massively nonviolent resistance. This is it. Resist the apathy. Resist the voter suppression. Say no to it. let's say in this moment, our vote this year will be a signal that for the next 10 years, we're going to have massive vote. What if we could make it look like on the first day of early voting and beyond, like it looked like in South Africa when Mandela came out? Especially since I'm learning from the South Africans afraid a dying mule kicks the hardest. Could it be that all of this stuff we're seeing is being done by people who recognize that their power and their lives are failing in terms of the ability to them to manipulate things, to get into power, to do what they want to do, particularly if the people and the impacted people. What if every impacted person, I'm looking at these numbers again, just say, you're not going to do this to me without you hearing from me. And they decide that this vote is their voice. I'm reading it here now, the 12 million people who could have had Medicaid and the other millions that did get kicked off, the children of the 6 million children that could have health care, the 45 million people. Those of you listening to this podcast, there comes a time that you have to mobilize pain. People have been pained and hurt. They become the greatest advocates and the greatest instruments for change because of their pain, because of their scars, because of what they've been denied. That's why that great text says, the stone that the builders rejected become the chief cornerstone. And then it says, and this is the Lord's doing, right? I'm just
marvelous.
And it's marvelous in God's sight. Let's do something marvelous.
I can see it now, a marvelous thing. Thousands of people leading marches to the polls. You can sign up now at breachrepairers.org. You will receive a toolkit that will tell you how you can get started. And you can come back right here 2 weeks from now for the next Repairers Brief to get more information, to keep educating. What'd you say, Elena? Educating?
I said educate,
and
organize, and mobilize. And real quick, I want to read a poem, if I may. It's real quick. It's to everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. Because I'm teaching a group at the Center on Personal Accountability. And it goes like this. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought that anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. We had a 21% voter turnout in the entire state of West Virginia in the spring. So if you're from West Virginia and you're listening to this Repairers of the Brief, I like that. Please register, get out and vote. Let your voice be heard. Turn your pain into power. Take your power back. Get to the polls. Be the change that you want to see. Because we also have to have a point of personal accountability.
That's right. It's on us now. We are that movement. I tried to rap it. I tried to preach it. I tried to say it. I'll let Hannah take it most of the way. But we are that movement that can turn this country around. We are that movement that can shut this foolishness down. We are that movement that can pick our votes up. We are that movement that can take us from the bottom to the top. We are that movement that can look up rather than stay down. We are that movement.
We are that movement.
We'll see you next time.